Welcome back to Talk of the Town. As promised, we are going to get you some information about football as we have Travis Wilson here, who is the general manager and sports writer for Wisconsin Sports Network. And we are just so pleased to have you. So thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Thank you. It's always a good day to talk about high school football.
It sure is. And now school's finally back in session, too. So we may have some increased interest out there in the football season that is just getting going. So there's all kinds of things that play a factor into football. Let's talk a little bit about weather, which can be a factor, as it was recently. So that was the case last week, huh? We had some weather problems.
Yeah, usually early in the season, the weather issue we have is heat and how hot the weather is. But last week it was lightning storms that went through much of the state. We weren't significantly impacted down here. There were a few games that were delayed, but especially in the northern part of the state, there were about 30 games that actually were delayed because of lightning and had to be postponed and made up either on Saturday or on Monday. So weather certainly played a big role in week 2 of the high school football season.
Absolutely, it sure did. And now let's talk about the Big 8 conference. We're early on. It seems to be wide open here so far. What do you think we can take away from just the first couple of weeks so far?
Well, I think the Big 8 race certainly is more wide open than it has been the last couple of years. The last 2 years, Sun Prairie was the undefeated champion in the conference. They went down in week 1 this season to Madison La Follette. A slight upset maybe, but I think really foreshadows what should be an outstanding Big 8 race. Middleton, I think, is still going to be in the mix. Sun Prairie, La Follette obviously has an early leg up, but it's going to be a fun race to watch the entire season.
It sure is, and it's always fun. I love high school football. It's so fun to tune in and go and be part of the games. Now, speaking of the Big 8, let's talk a little bit about the Madison schools. Do you feel like this might be an opportunity for them to improve this year?
I certainly think so. You know, the Madison City schools have struggled a little bit the last few years, but I think this year we're seeing the talent level across the board in the Madison area, in the Madison City Conference schools, really increase. I think La Follette has an outstanding chance to earn a Big 8 championship. I think Memorial looks pretty solid. West has been a little bit of a surprise early on, and East has been really improved as well. So it's really shaping up to be a very good year for those 4 city schools.
Very good, and we'll have to keep watching to see what happens with those guys. But let's talk about, there was an injury to an important player that took place just last week. So been an interesting story to kind of follow. Can you give us an update on what's going on with this player?
Yeah, Edgerton's Ricky Williams last year was the state's leading rusher and had a very good week 1, but then in week 2, kind of a surprise, he actually didn't suit up. He had a boot on his foot and was dealing with a foot injury. And they were doing some more tests earlier this week. Haven't learned all of the details on that, but hopefully he can come back because obviously he's a big part of their success. State's leading rusher last year, to have him out obviously is a big blow for Edgerton.
Absolutely. Now, let's kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about Monona Grove. So they were one of last year's state champions, and they got a rebound win in week 2. So what do you think is going on with Monona Grove? Are they back on track in your opinion?
I think they are. It's hard to say they were off track necessarily. They lost to a very good Mount Horeb-Barneveld team in week 1, but going on the road and getting a big win at DeForest last week, a shutout victory no less, really gets them back on track heading into their conference schedule. I think they're still the favorite in the Badger South and one of the favorites in Division III once again. Very good.
Now, talk a little bit about some of the, we've talked about schools, we've talked about some of the teams and potentially where they're going to go, in your opinion, and what we've seen from them so far. How about from an individual standpoint? Is there anybody that you feel like has stood out to us this year thus far?
Well, one of the biggest performances the entire year so far was right away in week 1 on a Thursday game that I was at between Waunakee and Madison Edgewood. Senior running back Troy Laufenberg of Waunakee had 350 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, kicked 6 extra points, kicked 5 kickoffs into the end zone for touchbacks, and just kind of did it all for them. I think he drove the bus and handled the water as well. So one of the great performances we've seen so far in the early going, and just one of those special players we have here in the Madison area for sure.
Absolutely, and we've got just a little bit of time left, so tell me, are there any highlights that you foresee coming up in the next couple of weeks here, games we might need to catch?
Well, it's, again, going to be an exciting run here in the Madison area. The Big 8 race shapes up to be very exciting. The Badger North race, I think, is going to be very fun to watch. You have 4 teams, Reedsburg, the defending league champion, Waunakee getting back on track, DeForest, and Mount Horeb-Barneveld. that are going to battle it out. I think you could throw any of their names into a hat, draw them out in any order, and you probably wouldn't be wrong necessarily. This week we have Reedsburg and DeForest squaring off. We're going to see a number of great matchups the rest of the way. So really going to be a fun season as we get into the conference schedule here in the Madison area.
Excellent. Well, I greatly value your opinion, and we appreciate having you on Wisconsin Sports Network, our sports partner here for Talk of the Town. Travis, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it. That's all for Talk of the Town. Please join us next time. I'm your host, Jessa Jeremiah. We'll see you later.